Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest edition of the Nature's Unleashed podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Cordial, and in this podcast series made by FrieslandCampina, we have the pleasure to talk to many different leaders across our organisation, people who have helped the business to grow, to flourish, and basically make it work every day. So I am really happy to be joined this time by Tuncay. Welcome. You are currently our President of Retail in Americas, which sounds like a huge job, but we're going to come on to that in a little bit. But welcome. Really good to have you with us. But I think you have a bit of an interesting story about how you came to be at FrieslandCampina. So perhaps that's a good place to start.
Thank you, Leslie. Actually, this was 9 years ago and a bit, because I'm working 9.5 years within FrieslandCampina. And before FrieslandCampina, I had 27 years of duty within Ahold del Heze. So actually, I come from the dark side. And I was heading sourcing within Albert Heijn. Not per se interested into to do another job outside of Albert Heijn, but sometimes you get in contact and there was a question from the market by an executive search, would you like to talk with FrieslandCampina because they have a very specific ask and they would like to talk with you. And that's intrigued me a bit. I was curious, so I said, why not? Let's have a chat, and probably it will somewhere stop there, but okay.
Never hurts to have a chat, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And so we went into a conversation, and I was actually immediately intrigued by the diagnosis which was sketched by then. They said, actually, we are a very big company. We are a complex company with many outlets, with many route to markets. And we are in specific areas, we are okay, we are good. Like in brands and commodities and ingredients. But there is also a specific area where we are in, where we feel we are a little bit short. And they called out the private label, which was developing back then. In a fast pace, they felt, hey, we need fresh blood from outside with more retail DNA, understanding the customer intimacy part, but also building private labels is also an art. And okay, I heard the whole story and was sitting in my car, and I was like, okay, what I did just hear, and honestly speaking, it gave me energy. So that was for me digesting and going into new conversations, because this is a process where you go in. And in the end, I get the proposal. You can do two things. You can do it or not do it. And in the end, I did it. I took the step, which was quite courageous back then, because a lot of colleagues within Ahold said, hey, this is a big step. You're going to the other side on the one hand. And also, yeah, you're in a luxury position. It's a great company you're working for. Your remuneration is not bad. Why would you do it? And I still did it because I felt there was a purpose within a mission within FrieslandCampina, and I can contribute to it. And that was the reason I did it.
And I know when we were talking a little bit before we stepped into this podcast around it being a journey. It's 9.5 years. And what you saw, I guess, was what we were calling the end game. So you had that vision. How has that developed over the last 9.5 years? And how much of that courage that you mentioned has been an essential part of that journey?
Frankly speaking, it was not easy. Because I stepped in and maybe a little bit naive. Let's say, I trusted, the vision of the board back then, that they really want to go through it. But within a few months, this completely changed because my sponsor left back then. And then new people came in and they had other vision. And that's something I was not expecting, to be honest. I thought, okay, I'm in now. And probably we will do it. And then suddenly the strategy changed. And the new leaders found back then that there were other solutions to the problem, which could have worked, but it didn't work. So I also, now looking backwards, there are different solutions for different problems. But it also depends on the people who are in the lead to give the direction to it. And going back, the diagnosis can be right, but the organization should be mentally also ready for it. And I did not feel when I came in that the organization was really ready to make the change.
Do you feel the organization is ready now? Things have changed a lot over 9 years?
Yeah, huge. I think, look, we have walked the other path to make a solution to it. Because the diagnosis we sketched was, let's try to increase the demand-driven business. Because we have too much milk to put it all in demand-driven, so we have also push deals. And a part of this was, okay, grow big-time brands. And that is the exit, let's say, to do less commodity-type products and commodity-type business. But I think in the meanwhile, we realized that it has partly worked. So it was not a useless strategy. I think it was good, but did not give the complete solution, let's say, to the problem that we have. And now we know that we need more, let's say, parallel strategies to create demand-driven business, which private label is a fantastic way to do it. So in that sense, also the feel I had already back then to move away from transactional business to more strategic partnerships is actually what we are doing now. And this is carried not only by the EB, the ET, but also by the SVB. And I think in that sense, there is a lot of support for what we are doing at the moment. And frankly speaking, the first proof points are coming in and we can see, and this really encourages what we are doing.
And I'm just going to clarify for our listeners. So EB is our executive board, our executive team, and also you referenced our supervisory board. And this is business these days, isn't it? It is constant change, and what might work at one point doesn't necessarily work at other points. So you also, I think, referenced how complex FrieslandCampina is. This is a very good example. I think it also shows the very human side of our organisation. But let's maybe come back to the complexity, because we said you're president of Retail in Americas, but I think you have a couple of other responsibilities in there as well, do you not?
Yeah, so we are organized through the geographical axis. Retail Americas is responsible for Germany, France, Spain, Italy is a cluster, and then we have Felder, which is also in different countries, and then we have Americas. At the same moment, we also realized that we have, because we could have organized in a different way, also through the category lens, like cheese or butter or white dairy products, but we didn't. So we did. We chose for geographical organization. At the same moment, if you look at cheese, for instance, it is overarching different business groups. It's and Retail Americas, and Europe, and Professional, and MEPA. So in that sense, we have also decided that cheese and private label is under our responsibility. So the strategy is set at one place, but execution is in different business groups. Like butter is in the hands of Professional, and white dairy is in the hands of the responsibility of Europe. This is complex, but it does also give the responsibilities clear who's running the strategic show, and the execution is in the countries.
And I think, so you have cheese, don't you? That's your strategic priority. And I think what it also shows is how much opportunity there is within FrieslandCampina. So there is quite some change, but also clear responsibilities. But still, I mean, that sounds like quite a tough task. And you said, okay, it was courageous to step in. It was courageous because there was a lot of change quite early on. How did you deal with that? I mean, what shaped you to be the courageous leader that you are today?
Then I have to go back to my youth.
That's okay. We're ready to listen.
I'm the second generation Turkish. My father and my mother came to the Netherlands, and we grew up with a different cultural background in a Dutch society in '63. So in those times, immigration was not a huge issue like now, or a huge topic. Actually, there was a lack of people working. So my father never came to the Netherlands. He was collected. So Dutch companies went to Turkey to find workers. And not only to Turkey, but also to Spain and Italy. So if I look at the first jobs my father had, actually he was not working with Dutch people, but with Spanish and Italian people. He can better speak in the beginning Spanish and Italian than Dutch. So bring that in the context where we are now is completely different. So that's very interesting. But the courageous thing is already, I think, with starting with my father, coming from a complete different country and culture to the Netherlands, that is a courageous step, especially in a moment which we cannot envision now. He didn't have WhatsApp or any communication. There was not even, there were telephones, but I know my father and my mother did not have any contact with the family except writing letters the first 5 years when they were living in the Netherlands. And actually in the first 2 years, they were living with Dutch people in their garden, in the summer house.
In their garden?
Yeah, in the summer house. You cannot imagine now. But back then, that's quite a huge step to come from a foreign country, a warm country, to the Netherlands. And actually, I born at 12 December in the middle of the winter at -10. You can imagine, without any heating in the house. Yeah, but talking about courage, I think that's courageous to do. To jump in the deep, as my parents did. And then growing up in a culture which is completely different, not speaking the language. My mother was even illiterate. She couldn't. I learned her bicycling, riding a bike. At a very young age, I was already helping my parents because I spoke better Dutch than my parents back then. So what do you do as the eldest in a family? Then you start helping them. So at the age of 12, I was filling in tax forms, for instance. Who would do that at 12 years?
Not so many people, no.
So courage, I don't know, you are born in a certain context and then you're in that. So in that sense, I think the first movers, they really had the courage to do something. And then, growing up in that family, actually, you become part of that. Yeah.
It's incredible role models, but still it's choices. You still chose to help do your parents' tax return at the age of 12. And I'm sure those are things that stay with you and form you as the person that you are. What would be the advice you would give to others, if they're maybe faced with difficult situations and tough choices along the way?
I would say make the choices. I think that's also maybe a lot of people suffered by not making choices and always be somewhere in the middle, because when you make a choice, even if you make a wrong choice, that you made the wrong choice and you can pivot again. And I think this is also nowadays one of the benefits I have, or people have, who are doing this and making choices also helps you to find the right path. Not making choices is far more difficult, in my opinion. And that's maybe what I've learned quite young. Making choices also helps. And sometimes you have to disappoint people or disappoint an environment. I also made choices which maybe my family didn't like back then, but I still did it. And in the end, making choices, I think, makes you stronger.
And when we talk about the choices, I think this is very much from what I have seen, what I've heard from you, is a key part of your leadership style. But I'm sure there's also been plenty of other challenges along the way, not just about what decisions I make. Is there a kind of particularly defining moment that has shaped the leader that you are now?
I think it's on the one hand to make choices and to dare, at the same time taking people along with you. Losing people when you are heading for something does not help either, because in the end the collective strength is far more stronger than being individual. And I made strong choices when I was young. Also, I want to make a choice to maybe take a little bit more distance from my cultural background and to merge into the Dutch culture. But still, I took my parents with me. So I did not do it in a way to lose them. I didn't want to lose them, but still, I could have lost them back then. So I think that's what shaped me as well. On the one hand, to dare to do stuff. At the same hand, try to bring people along with you. Because, it's not easy for people to make that step in once. They could fear something or they... so it's a bit double in that sense. Daring stuff and taking people along with you. It's not always easy. It's a fine line.
Yeah, I'm sure it very much is. And I think that leads us a little bit into, a topic we wanted to talk about, which is how FrieslandCampina looks at leaders, what it expects of its leaders. And we talk about care and courage. So we've talked a lot about the courage. I think now you're coming very much into that care aspect. How do you take people along in a way that's right for them? And I know also you're very much a sponsor of our leadership strategy within FrieslandCampina. So why is that such an important commitment for you to sponsor something like a leadership strategy?
I think it is important because in the end, I believe the collective is stronger than the individual. Of course, you can have your right hand, you can be good in something, but finally, when you want to move big organizations, you need collective knowledge and energy of the people. And if you can unlock that, it's far more stronger than being on your own. And actually, growing up in bigger organizations, I did it within Ahold, but also within FrieslandCampina, you realize more and more that actually the collective is a strength and not the individual. And of course, individuals can make a difference, but still you need the collective.
Absolutely. And in terms of individuals, obviously different people have different needs, develop in different ways. And I want to go back a little bit to what you said towards the beginning when you talked about the organization not necessarily being ready, mentally ready for some of the things that you wanted to do, needed to do. How do you bring all those different people along? How do you care for all those different people? And when sometimes some people find it much harder to take those steps that need to be taken, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, somehow I did this in a natural way when I was very young already within Ahold, but probably not in a very efficient way. And the more you work and also with the years of experience, it goes a bit quicker. I think it starts, all of it starts with the spark, how you set the future. If you believe in it and if people can believe in it, it starts with a dream somehow. Yeah? So when cheese is not profitable, how can I make it profitable? Or when this is not profitable, how can I make it? Yeah? And if you can find that spark, that is a very important start, that people envision something what they like. Let's put it that way.
Something they like, but something they can relate to.
Yes.
I think we often talk about what's the North Star, what is it that we're aiming towards? And leadership, of course, is you've changed as a leader over the years, but what we need as leaders is also evolving. It's such a dynamic world now. I mean, we have so much around AI. What kind of leaders do you think we're going to need in the future? What's your North Star version on that one?
I believe in true collaboration. not in a single leader who knows everything and does everything. Of course, you need a leader which gives inspiration, at least direction. But in the end, you need the collective, let's say, to come there. And if people don't believe in you or don't believe in your vision or don't believe, then it will never happen. So somehow you need the collective energy of the group to reach something. And I've experienced situations when this is not the case, it will never happen. Somehow, if individuals go for their own success, it goes through a certain point, but then it stops.
And how do you deal with that? I mean, there's always going to be people that, I guess, just don't want to necessarily be part of the team. As you say, individual success, which is okay. But you need people to be all heading towards that North Star, that end game. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that?
Look, I think it starts with defining that point where you want to go, and then bringing all the energy and intellect to that point. When you sketch this, then actually you do feel who are really contributing and who really are not, actually.
Yeah.
In some cases, actually in many cases, they even come to you to tell about, okay, I see what you're heading, but I don't believe in it. And I think then the conclusion, they already take themselves. You don't have to do, because they don't feel connected, and then they somehow all leave to another department or they leave the company, could be. Which is fine, I think. And I think it's even better, because in the end, the energy what you can create with a total group, and you have people around who don't believe in it, that does not work, is it?
And I think we talk about the courage aspect. Again, I think sometimes that's what we have to do, is we have to be courageous and honest to ourselves and say, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And then it's better, rather than keeping to push through, but to go and have an honest conversation with your manager and just go, okay, what are the alternatives? And I know you're also somebody that really goes the extra mile, both for the people as well as for the business. So I'd like to just sort of go maybe to a few of the examples that what we've talked about. So I know one in particular is, I think you got up rather early one morning to go and join one of our farmers, one of the truck drivers. So can you just share a little bit around that, the extra mile you're prepared to go to make a business work?
Yeah, what you realize is when you start working, you start at the bottom, and then throughout your career you go more and more, if you manage, to the top. But what I've also learned is to be connected with the floor, because you can have many management meetings, but waking up 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the factory, working at the line. And I think the example you're referring to, I was explaining to you, Leslie, waking up 4 o'clock in the morning and be with a truck driver. Actually, I learned that morning more than all the meetings I had about supply chain regarding a specific topic. This was within Velder. And this guy was not even very talkative, but I addressed a few questions. Oh, this is like this, or this is like that. I was like, oh, does it work like that? So actually, when I came back, I made a few notes, and I was like, wow, I really learned a lot just to be there. And then you understand also you can make fantastic strategies. But in the end, you make difference at the point of purchase. And everything in between should contribute to it. And when I learned also within Albert Heijn, when a shelf is empty, there is a reason why it's empty. And it can be many things. It can be the programming of the IT until the driver did not wake up at time, or someone was sleeping at the head office. And I think it's good to be connected with the floor, and that helps to not stay in your ivory tower in the head office, but on a regular basis also to go to the shop floor and what's really happening.
Yeah, really get out there and talk to people and live it. And I think that's great advice for leaders. What other advice would you give maybe for, people that might be stepping into a management role for the first time, a little bit unsure? It's like, I really know the content, but What about the people side of things? What other advice would you give them?
I don't know if it's one type of advice. I would encourage people to do different things. Especially when you are young, I would say don't stay too long in a job for 10 years, but try to switch every 2-3 years. Because there are different experiences in different phases of your life. And in the beginning, I think it's quite normal to make quicker changes to experience. Some youngsters want change every 3 months. That's too quick, I would say. I wouldn't advise it either, but let's say 2 years at the spot and move on. Especially when you're ambitious, I would do it because you need it. You need different experiences throughout your life, also in different disciplines. If I look at my own career, I started in supply chain. And then I did all kinds of commercial roles, marketing, format management, category management, sourcing, until I made the step for general management. So it helps to learn and to move on.
Get out there and get the experience.
Yeah.
And it takes many different characteristics to be a leader, to be a successful leader. What do you think has been your most successful characteristic?
I think at a certain moment I realized, and it was already within Ahold, as a leader you feel that you should be in charge all the time.
Mm.
And at a certain moment I learned that being in charge gives you a feel of control. But it is stronger to serve people in your charge, because you cannot decide for all the people all the time. I think it's better to let people come in their strength. There's far more strength than they just follow up your orders, because they will do it in the end. But unlocking that energy and intellect is far more strong than trying to be the holy one who knows everything.
Yeah, we tend to look at our leaders as being super people, don't they? You know, they know everything. And maybe just my last couple of questions, but with so much changing in the world today, what do you think is going to be one of the most important aspects for leadership in the future?
To be a good listener, for starters, because you get far more information by listening and to really make a good diagnosis from what is the topic, what is the issue. And then try to organize around this. We call it congruence. It has so many aspects, so many dimensions to it. But I always say, you cannot boil the whole ocean. So try to create your market and be the winner in it, instead of trying to solve everything.
Choose where you want to be successful. Focus, priorities. So maybe my last question for you today is, okay, you took the leap of faith 9.5 years ago after an amazing career at Ahold. Do you have any regrets? Would you do anything different?
I don't have any regrets. I did not regret one
second. That's good. That is good.
I did have moments of doubt when I stepped in, to be honest. I thought I was stepping in a spreaded bed, but it was not. FrieslandCampina took the decision to do this, and I still have to fight for it. But what I learned from it, Leslie, is actually that, how do you say it, water always streams to the lowest point. So this issue was already there, but the organization was not ready for it. So in the meanwhile, I at least stayed along and I learned a lot. So it was not for nothing. But in the end, I think the strength I had back then, now really, I can really use, let's say, to change the course of the company, because it is a huge thing. It is a transition for the company, but it's really needed. But I can feel it going the right direction. So actually the problem was still there, but we are not ready for it. And now we are ready for it. We are doing it, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, Tuncay, thank you very much. It's been wonderful talking with you today. Learned an awful lot. And I think if I maybe summarize some of the key things from my side, It's, of course, the care and the courage. I think that courage was formed, certainly from early points in childhood, but it was also then a choice of yours to continue to make courageous decisions along the way, but to do that also with great care for those around you, whether it was your family or with your team members. But also, whilst choices are an important part of becoming a leader, I sense also an element of patience and resilience. You know, we live in a very complex world, and it's important that to understand that maybe things are not perfect at exactly the time you would like them to be. But if you keep hard work, keep the focus and have a clear end game, all things are possible. So thank you very much, Tuncay. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Les.
Thanks very much, everybody.